rates, right? To absorb different types of content at different types of day on different devices. I mean, we know that we'll talk about mobile as well, but we know that mobile users, social users heavily use mobile, so it's around 80%ish, and growing all the time are using social on a mobile device. But separating them is very important. So people come to Facebook for spending time with lifestyle things. They don't want really to talk about business. Your business people are there, your clients are there, but they're not there to engage with you from a business perspective, unless your business happens to be selling ice cream or something like that. Much more in the consumer, the retail space. But I think there's quite a few B2B businesses in the room, if I'm right. Give me a nod. Yeah, good. That's not a nod, by the way, but that's fine. I'll let you off. So yeah, understanding that Twitter is very quick, very powerful, very news. LinkedIn, much more thought leadership, deep content. You teach me something, I want to learn something. Understanding the difference between these social channels and adapting your content strategy to that again is really, really important. And are you a one-way communicator? So again, social it's a two-way space, right? So people want to have a conversation on social media. If you're there just to blast out messages, then you're ultimately advertising, right? So again, understanding that is that are you willing and able, even if you're just pushing a message out, if someone were to come back to you, are you able to have a conversation about that piece? Or are you going to find yourself scrabbling around, unsure about what to do if you get a controversial response? So thinking that through and having that planning around that two-way conversation is important.
Sorry, if we move on to that one-way conversation.
Yeah.
People talk about social media as what we put out. What about listening to what your clients are putting out?
Yeah. Social listening is very important as well. I mean, obviously for me, I'm not going too deep into any channel here. Well, obviously what I'm talking about is the kind of broader picture of how the bits pull together. So yeah, that's absolutely right. Listening into what your clients put out, also listening into what your competitors put out, and listening into people who have absolutely no real relationship with you whatsoever as well. So social listening is vitally important, and understanding the landscape. I mean, ultimately, for me, everything I do in marketing, digital or not, is based on data, metrics, insight. So I don't make any decisions really without that. I mean, occasionally, obviously, you'll want to take a risk. You'll want to do something a little bit different and see what happens. You've just got to be careful to mitigate that risk. But everything I do is based on metrics, as I'm sure almost everybody in the room does the same thing. So yeah, social listening and seeing what's going on out there is crucially important. Yeah, definitely part of the puzzle. So. Does mobile matter? Oh, these all seem to be clicky. So do you have a responsive site? This is an interesting question as well. Who has a responsive site in the room? Again, that's not bad. It's about half of you. I mean, really, it should be all of us by now, if we're honest, shouldn't it? It's in 2015, moving into 2016, but we don't yet. But it's not far away. I've only been with the business 2 months, so give me a chance. But yeah, I mean, there's still a way to go on that. So if you have a mobile, does mobile matter to you? Are your consumers absorbing things through mobile? As we know, mobile users tend to be looking for content rather than for purchase, right? So and that's the trend, and I think that will change. That will move towards purchase in time as that becomes increasingly easier, which is happening at quite some pace. But at the moment, having your content going out across mobile and having your emails responsive at least, and then eventually the ones that you haven't managed to get to it yet, getting your sites responsive is crucially important. Even if they're not going to come there to buy, or they're not going to come there to get involved in some kind of lead process, then at least they're going to absorb your content, maybe bookmark you, maybe just remember you, who knows. I mean, does anyone know the term dark social in here? Great, okay. So kind of crossing over there. So dark social is sharing things socially that you can't track. So things like email, for example, if you were to share something on email, you can't get the stats out of that. If you share it on Twitter, you share it on Facebook, you've got some insight there. Share it across somewhere else, you've got no data to actually look at. The darkest type of social is what, if you talk to someone about social 20 years ago, they would have understood. In other words, talking to your friends, remembering it in your head, things like that you have absolutely no way of tracking, no matter who you are. You have to be superhuman to work out what someone's actually thinking. So that stuff is crucially important as well. The fact that someone doesn't bookmark it or save it doesn't mean they didn't like it, and it doesn't mean that. I mean, for me on my iPhone, I have what I tend to do is if I'm browsing around the internet and I find something I like, but I want to save it for later, I just leave the window open and open up a new window and carry on in that one. So I've got probably about 30 or 40 windows open in my browser there, but no one's going to see anything from that other than I've been on their page for a long time, which probably just means they think I've forgotten about it and left it open, right? So in your data, it's difficult to see that stuff, but understanding that is crucially important. So the content on mobile is important, so being responsive to be able to do that. Using your analytics, as I said, I've waffled on about data a little bit there. Apple and Android's an interesting one. I just put this chart up here. That's probably what you've all been taking photos of, the ones of you that have been doing something. I thought it was just looking good. But the point of this here is just to show some of the differences between iPhone and Android, and therefore how that might resonate with your client base. So this, I mean, it's all very easy to find this kind of stuff, to be honest with you. But I mean, if you look over here, so the people that have a graduate degree tend to be much more towards iPhones than Androids. The people that follow technology news tend to be much more towards Android than iPhone. I'm addicted to digital devices is iPhone more so than Android, but as you can imagine, it's both. Your household income over $125,000. This is. You're hugely more advanced in the iPhone, as you'd expect. Household $50,000 to $75,000, iPhone much further down, and Android further up. So you're understanding who are my clients. We know our clients. We've segmented them, or we understand them in some level of detail, and we know they've got large incomes, or we know they're not, but they're techie and they love technology. They just can't afford the stuff they really might want. Then that gives you a steer as to whether you should focus mobile. So if you are going to develop an app, should you develop it? And I think I've worked at startups before, and I worked at a startup a number of years ago where they developed a startup limited money, and they developed an app for Android, an app for iPhone, an app for iPad, an app for Android tablet, and an app for Windows as well. And it was just complete overkill. It just spent an absolute fortune developing these apps. And I think maybe 2 users on the Windows platform, and it was a complete waste of money. So understanding who your clients are, where they are, what they use before you build your strategy, and it is again crucially important. And social media, as we said, there's that stat about there it is, 78% of Twitter users are mobile, 81% for Facebook. I actually think that stat might be slightly out of date. I think it's probably a bit higher than that now, actually, to be honest. I think Twitter's probably closer to 90, and Facebook's getting that way as well.
I'd love to know why Android drives you to hard liquor. The last point.
Eh? Oh, yeah, hard liquor is my favourite alcoholic drink. Absolutely right. Yeah, Android.
You're an alcoholic.
Yeah, and it's interesting that the iPhone users don't have an opinion on that as well. So, yeah, sometimes, maybe not. Depends how irritating the update's being, to be honest. Yeah, okay. There's some good stats. So how deep is your content strategy? So again, this comes down to what you can manage in your organization. So everyone knows nowadays content is king. That's been a phrase forever, but it's never been more relevant than now. But some of the key considerations is how deep should your content strategy be? It's great to say we want to put out all this thought leadership, we want to talk about this, we want to put that across social media, we want to distribute it, we want to do loads of PR, we want that to resonate everywhere. But do you have the processes in place to manage that? And do you have the resource in place to manage that? These are really crucial points. So if you're not able to commit the resource to managing and coordinating the content, all you're going to do is produce a load of random content. And going back to Carl's point about being tactical, you're just going to say a lot of stuff randomly all over the place that no one can really follow or understand what your point is. And that's no good. Integrating it together, having a real good content plan is important. And there are lots of different ways to structure that. Again, Carl put that point up about, I think it was kind of different client or prospect types and different parts of the journey, and therefore how you should talk to them at different cells, which is great. I also like to look at it from the perspective of what are the different messages we can put out as well. So for example, there will be things that you'll want to say as a business. There'll be promotional kind of campaign messages you want to put out. There'll be projects that you're working on, that you're going to launch some kind of new technology, something that's going to come out you're going to want to have some announcement around. You will have things that are going on from a product perspective, new launches. You will have, from the client's perspective, what is relevant to those clients based on their segments. So you understand the clients, you can talk to them. But then there's also calendar events. So there's Christmas, there's Thanksgiving. Those things are relevant to all of us, and they often get missed off content strategy. I think a lot of people think about, we're in this specific space here. We're a microchip manufacturer, so no one cares about Christmas. Well, chances are most of your customers, if you're in the UK, are celebrating Christmas. So why isn't there some angle on that? It doesn't mean you have to say Happy Christmas to everyone, but is there some angle that you can take that on this specific idea? So what I have is these layers when I build a content strategy of all these different things. So throughout every week of the year, what are the product launches? What are the projects we've got going on? What are the campaigns we're running? What's going on in just general life? Is there a World